Hello everyone, and welcome to my Beyond the Gates official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The leaked episode of Beyond the Gates airing Tuesday, December 23rd explodes open with tension already crackling through Fairmont Crest as whispers of betrayal finally ignite into full-blown confrontation, and the episode wastes no time plunging viewers into the emotional fallout of secrets long buried now clawing their way to the surface, beginning with Tracy standing alone in the dimly lit study of the Dupree estate, clutching a phone that contains the proof she's wrestled with for days. Text, messages, hotel receipts, a damning photo blurred but unmistakable, evidence that Vernon's business trips were anything but innocent, and as Tracy steels herself to expose the truth, the narrative cuts sharply to Sharon waking beside Vernon in a luxury suite, her face already etched with regret as she realizes their secret is no longer contained. Her whispered fears dismissed by Vernon's overconfident assurance that Tracy would never dare tear their family apart, a statement that instantly foreshadows just how wrong he is, because across town Tracy is already making moves that will change everything, and when she arrives at the family brunch unannounced, the atmosphere shifts palpably, with Nicole sensing something is off, Anita watching closely with her trademark quiet intensity, and Leslie lurking on the periphery, already smelling chaos, and when Tracy finally drops the bomb, 3 simple words, "He cheated on you." The room fractures, Nicole frozen in disbelief, Vernon erupting in denial, Sharon exposed and trembling, and Anita's silence louder than any scream as the truth detonates in her eyes, setting off a chain reaction that ripples through every storyline in the episode, because while the affair revelation commands the emotional center, it's only the first domino to fall. As elsewhere, Haley scrambles to contain her own secrets after overhearing a private conversation between Tomas and a mysterious caller hinting that her past identity is closer to exposure than she realized, pushing her into panic mode as she begins deleting files, burning documents, and making frantic calls to someone known only as Val, a name that longtime viewers recognize as the ghost she's been running from. And as Haley's desperation mounts, Lynette senses weakness and presses harder, subtly reminding Haley that leverage cuts both ways, while Bill's lingering presence continues to haunt the Crest despite his death, with Randy quietly uncovering a financial trail that suggests Bill orchestrated far more events from behind the scenes than anyone suspected, including the timing of Anita's absence. And when Randy shares this discovery with Danny, her reaction is conflicted, torn between loyalty to the past and fear of what this information could unleash if made public, especially now that the community is already on edge. And speaking of edges, Ted and Shanice find themselves at a crossroads when the affair scandal forces them to confront their own fragile trust, with Shanice questioning whether honesty ever truly exists in Fairmont Crest, while Ted, haunted by his own past mistakes, promises transparency even as he hides one crucial detail, his recent meeting with Tracy before the revelation, a meeting that may have influenced Tracy's decision to go public when she did, suggesting that nothing in this episode happens by accident, because every confrontation feels calculated, every tear purposeful, and every silence loaded with implication, and nowhere is that more evident than in Anita's private reckoning later that night, when she confronts Vernon alone, her composure chilling as she recounts every sacrifice she made for their family, every betrayal she forgave, and every warning sign she chose to ignore, culminating in a devastating declaration that she no longer recognizes the man before her. And as Vernon attempts to justify himself, claiming loneliness, pressure, and manipulation, Anita's response is swift and final. She tells him that consequences are coming, not just personal ones, but public, legal, and social, hinting at moves she's already set in motion that could dismantle Vernon's carefully curated legacy, a threat that sends Vernon spiraling into panic as he realizes Sharon may not be the only thing he's about to lose. And indeed, the episode's final act confirms that fear, as a leaked document circulates anonymously through Fairmont Crest's elite circles, revealing irregularities in Vernon's business dealings tied to Sharon's accounts, raising the question of whether their affair was merely emotional or part of something far more dangerous, while Sharon herself, overwhelmed by guilt and fear, attempts to flee town only to be stopped at the last minute by Tracy, whose confrontation with Sharon is less explosive than expected but far more devastating, as Tracy calmly explains that exposure wasn't about revenge, but about reclaiming truth, leaving Sharon to face the wreckage alone. And as night falls, the episode weaves together its final threads with surgical precision, Haley receiving a message that simply reads, "They know," Leslie smiling to herself as rumors spiral out of control, Tomas staring at a file labeled Val. With dawning certainty, Nicole quietly packing a bag unsure whether she's leaving for one night or forever, and Anita standing at the gates of Fairmont Crest, her expression resolute as she vows that betrayal will no longer be met with silence, closing the episode on a powerful, ominous note that promises Tuesday's leaked installment is not just another scandal-filled hour, but a turning point for Beyond the Gates, where alliances will shatter, identities will be exposed, and the cost of secrets will finally come due, setting the stage for a fallout that will reverberate through every family, every relationship, and every shadowed corner of Fairmont Crest in the episodes to come. As the repercussions of Tracy's explosive revelation continue to ripple outward, the leaked episode reveals that Fairmont Crest doesn't merely react to scandal, it feeds on it, and by the next morning the community is buzzing with speculation, judgment, and carefully disguised delight as secrets become currency, with Leslie wasting no time fanning the flames by selectively confiding in key social circles, twisting the affair narrative just enough to paint Sharon as a calculated seductress and Vernon as a reckless king who finally fell, while quietly positioning herself as the moral observer despite her own history of manipulation. And this calculated chaos puts Nicole in an impossible position as she finds herself fielding calls from relatives, board members, and so-called friends who claim concern but are clearly fishing for information, pushing Nicole to a breaking point where she finally snaps, demanding privacy and vowing to protect her children from becoming collateral damage, a vow that gains tragic irony when her son overhears a whispered argument between Vernon and Anita and asks a single, devastating question: "Is Dad leaving?" A moment that silences the room and forces Anita to confront the human cost of Vernon's betrayal beyond pride and legacy, while Vernon, unraveling under pressure, begins making reckless decisions of his own, including attempting to leverage old favors to suppress the financial leak tied to Sharon, only to discover that the allies he once controlled are now distancing themselves, sensing blood in the water. And as his power erodes, Sharon's situation deteriorates rapidly as well, with her bank accounts frozen pending investigation, her professional reputation in freefall, and her realization dawning that Vernon's promises of protection were always conditional, prompting her to seek help from an unexpected source, Leslie, only to be met with thinly veiled contempt and a chilling reminder that in Fairmont Crest, survival often means stepping on whoever falls first, leaving Sharon isolated and exposed. And elsewhere, Haley's panic escalates into paranoia as Tomas closes in his investigation, uncovering not only Haley's previous identity as Val but also a sealed arrest record connected to a financial crime that mirrors the same shell company structure now surfacing in Vernon's leaked documents, suggesting a dangerous overlap that could link multiple storylines into a single explosive conspiracy. And when Tomas confronts Haley with a fragment of the truth, her emotional breakdown appears genuine yet calculated, tears flowing as she insists she was manipulated, forced, and silenced by powerful men, a claim that momentarily destabilizes Tomas's certainty and hints that Haley may be both perpetrator and victim, complicating the moral lines just as the show thrives on doing, while Lynette watches this exchange from afar, recognizing the cracks and preparing to exploit them, convinced that Haley's downfall is the key to securing her own future. And as these private battles unfold, Randy's investigation into Bill's posthumous influence takes a darker turn when he uncovers evidence suggesting Bill deliberately positioned people like Haley and Vernon to take the fall if his larger financial network ever surfaced, raising the chilling possibility that Bill orchestrated his own narrative even beyond the grave, manipulating outcomes like a chess master long after his exit. A revelation that shakes Danny to her core as she questions whether her memories of Bill were ever real or merely another illusion crafted for control. And amid all this upheaval, Ted and Shanice attempt to anchor themselves in honesty, but cracks form when Shanice learns of Ted's meeting with Tracy prior to the affair's exposure, interpreting it as interference rather than coincidence, leading to a heated confrontation where Shanice accuses Ted of playing savior while secretly pulling strings, forcing Ted to confront the uncomfortable truth that even good intentions can become tools of manipulation in a town where transparency is rare, and the episode builds relentlessly toward its final moments as Anita makes her next move, quietly summoning a lawyer known for dismantling empires, signaling that Vernon's reckoning will not be emotional alone but systematic, legal, and unforgiving. And as she signs documents with steady hands, the camera intercuts between Vernon alone in his office staring at his name etched on a wall that suddenly feels temporary. Sharon sitting in a darkened apartment realizing she has nowhere left to run. Haley receiving a final message, reading, Val is no longer protected, and Tracy standing by the gates, she metaphorically shattered, resolute yet visibly shaken by the magnitude of what she's unleashed, closing the leaked episode with the unmistakable sense that Beyond the Gates has crossed a threshold where redemption will be costly, power will be stripped layer by layer, and no secret, no matter how carefully buried, will remain hidden for long, promising that the fallout from Tuesday's episode is only the beginning of a storm that will redefine Fairmont Crest forever. As the storm intensifies rather than settles, the leaked episode reveals that Fairmont Crest has entered a phase where no truth arrives alone and no revelation goes unanswered, because in the hours following Anita's decisive legal move, whispers of subpoenas and quiet audits ripple through boardrooms and private lounges, sending shockwaves through those who once believed Vernon's influence made them untouchable, and this mounting pressure forces Vernon into survival mode as he attempts to rewrite the narrative by portraying himself as a victim of manipulation, hinting to select confidants that Sharon pursued him under false pretenses, a claim that backfires spectacularly when Sharon, cornered and furious, threatens to testify to everything, dates, payments, favors, and promises, turning their affair into a potential criminal saga rather than a mere moral scandal. And as Vernon realizes, the walls are closing in, his isolation becomes complete, even Nicole refusing his calls as she focuses on protecting her children and quietly consults a mediator about separation, signaling that the family fracture may soon become permanent, while Tracy, though outwardly calm, begins to feel the weight of her choice as anonymous messages flood her phone, some praising her courage, others blaming her for the chaos, forcing her to confront the reality that truth-tellers in Fairmont Crest are rarely celebrated for long. And this emotional strain crescendos when Tracy overhears Leslie boasting about predicting the affair's exposure, making it painfully clear that Leslie is already attempting to rewrite history with herself at the center, prompting Tracy to warn her that exploiting the fallout may be her biggest mistake yet, a warning Leslie dismisses with a smile that suggests she's already planning her next move. Because while one empire crumbles, another sees opportunity, and that opportunity may lie in Haley's unraveling world, as Tomas uncovers a hidden account directly linked to Val's old identity that remained dormant for years before suddenly activating around the same time Bill's shadow network began shifting assets, implying coordination rather than coincidence. And when Tomas shares this with Randy, the two men realize they may be standing at the edge of a far-reaching conspiracy that implicates multiple pillars of Fairmont Crest, a realization that raises the stakes from personal drama to systemic corruption, while Lynette, sensing imminent collapse, secretly records a conversation with Haley that captures enough contradiction to destroy her credibility, though Lynette hesitates, aware that releasing it too soon could expose her own involvement, underscoring the show's central theme that power always demands payment. And amid these strategic battles, Ted finds himself confronting his own reflection as Shanice pulls away, questioning whether love can survive in an environment where silence is weaponized and honesty is selectively applied, leading Ted to consider leaving Fairmont Crest altogether, a possibility that frightens Shanice more than betrayal because it represents surrender. And as night falls again, The episode's tension sharpens with intercut scenes that refuse to grant relief. Anita reviewing decades-old documents that suggest Vernon's compromises began long before Sharon, Leslie receiving an anonymous envelope containing a photograph that could ruin her leverage if released. Sharon standing before a mirror rehearsing a statement she may soon deliver under oath, and Vernon destroying files in a desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable, only to pause when he realizes too late that the most damaging evidence was never on paper, but in people. And the leaked episode closes this extended arc with a haunting image of the Fairmont Crest gates standing open at dawn, symbolizing that once sealed worlds are now exposed, alliances are dissolving, and the cost of survival will no longer be measured in secrets kept but in truths endured, making it clear that Beyond the Gates is no longer circling scandal, but accelerating toward an irreversible reckoning that will redefine loyalty, power, and identity in ways no character is prepared to face. As Fairmont Crest awakens yet again to the aftershocks of exposed betrayal, the leaked episode makes it unmistakably clear that the damage inflicted is no longer confined to whispered corners or private rooms, because the scandal has begun reshaping public perception, institutional power, and personal identity all at once, with news of Vernon's alleged financial improprieties quietly reaching external investors and charitable boards, prompting sudden resignations and temporary leaves that feel anything but temporary, while Anita, calm and methodical, refuses every request for comment, allowing silence to do the work of accusation as she prepares for a reckoning that extends far beyond a broken marriage, and this calculated restraint only intensifies Vernon's unraveling as he oscillates between rage and desperation, lashing out at staff, blaming unseen enemies, and privately fixating on Tracy as the catalyst for his downfall, unaware that the true collapse began long before her truth-telling. A realization that comes too late when he's informed that a long-protected offshore account has been flagged, tying directly back to transactions Sharon once questioned but was told to ignore, and now those very questions position her as a key witness rather than a disposable accomplice, forcing Sharon into a terrifying moment of clarity where she must choose between loyalty to a man who abandoned her or survival in a town eager to make her the villain. And while Sharon wrestles with that choice, Nicole's storyline deepens as she confronts the emotional inheritance of deception, admitting to Danny that she built her life on trust that was never earned, and this confession leads Nicole to take a bold step. She schedules a family meeting not to heal wounds but to establish boundaries, declaring that cycles of secrecy end with her, even if that means redefining what family looks like moving forward, a declaration that quietly inspires Tracy, who begins to see that exposure, while painful, may also be transformative. Yet not everyone seeks transformation, because Leslie, sensing her influence, slipping, escalates her tactics by leaking selective details to stir suspicion around Anita's motives, suggesting that Anita may have known more about Vernon's activities than she ever admitted, a dangerous insinuation that threatens to complicate Anita's moral high ground and forces her legal team to pivot defensively, introducing the possibility that even the most righteous figures in Fairmont Crest are not untouched by compromise, and as this shadow looms, Tomas and Randy move closer to connecting the dots between Bill's posthumous manipulation, Haley's past as Val, and Vernon's financial architecture, uncovering a chilling pattern in which vulnerable people were positioned as buffers for powerful men, a system designed to collapse inward while preserving the illusion of respectability. And when Tomas confronts Haley again, her mask finally slips, revealing raw fear beneath calculated charm as she admits she was promised protection in exchange for silence, a promise that died with Bill, leaving her exposed in a game she never controlled. Yet even this confession is layered with ambiguity, because Haley omits one crucial truth, that she kept evidence not for justice but for leverage, a detail Lynette is dangerously close to discovering, while Ted's internal conflict reaches a breaking point as he realizes that leaving Fairmont Crest may spare him moral compromise, but cost him Shanice, forcing a late-night confrontation where unspoken truths finally surface, including Shanice's fear that staying means becoming numb to betrayal, and Ted's fear that staying means becoming complicit. And as these personal reckonings unfold alongside institutional collapse, the episode's momentum never relents, building toward a closing sequence that intercuts Vernon alone in an empty office stripped of symbols, Anita watching dawn break with quiet resolve, Sharon dialing a number she once swore she'd never call, Haley opening a hidden compartment to retrieve a flash drive labeled insurance, Leslie staring at her reflection, unsure whether she's winning or losing, and Tracy standing at the edge of Fairmont Crest realizing that the gates she opened can never be closed again, sealing the leaked episode with the unmistakable promise that Beyond the Gates has entered a ruthless new era where truth is no longer optional, power is no longer inherited, and survival will demand choices that permanently redefine who these characters are willing to become.